Welcome to episode 19 of the Camera Shake podcast. We're back after a crazy week. In fact, we're kind of late. So usually what happens is we record the podcast at the beginning of the week and then it goes live on a Thursday. Now, today is Thursday. This is Thursday morning. So if you're watching this or if you're listening to this podcast later on today, then know that only a few hours ago, we were actually sitting here recording this. So we're going to be putting this together in killer time.
Yeah, right? Good job I cleared my day, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's been a crazy week. It's been crazy mainly because it's the start of term and like everything's kicked in again. And it feels like we're truly out of lockdown like this. It feels like everything's gone back to normal.
Feels strange. Feels really, really strange. And yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. It feels like we're out of lockdown with some adjustments.
Yeah, I mean, basically school started again. Like we haven't had school, like over here in the UK, school's been out since the end of March.
Something like that.
Beginning of roughly. April or something like that. So it feels odd, So yeah, we'll see what that brings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I don't have kids, you do. And, but, teaching for what we do kind of outside of general video and photography work is going to start kicking up again in the next sort of couple of weeks. Yeah. Also with lots of cleaning involved. That'll be fun. Can't wait for that.
Yeah, it's been nuts. I mean, even obviously, even when it comes to indoor photo shoots, for example, there's a lot of cleaning involved. You got to clean everything. Like you got to clean the area, you got to clean all the props, everything that's been touched. So that's interesting.
With the us going back and doing some teaching, I'd rather have shorter lessons and do all that cleaning than not go back and teach in person.
Yeah,
it's better for everybody.
I think what's going to be important really is to make sure that everything's spaced out time-wise, enough so that you don't end up rushing around, because that's when mistakes happen.
That's exactly when mistakes happen.
So
I do it all the time with editing. If I'm rushing and I will make a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely.
As simple as that.
Yeah, I mean that's I find the same thing with photo shoots. I tend to leave more time. I tend to give myself more time to make sure. I mean, not only because a lot of like headshots, for instance, happen in my home studio, so it's my home as well as my studio space. So it's even more important to make sure everything is 100%. And you just don't know. You can read whatever you want. Every newspaper, every website is going to tell you something different about where we're at in the whole scheme of things as far as the pandemic is concerned. It's like one news outlet will tell you, cases are dropping, everything's going back to normal, blah, 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 and this is opening up and that's opening up. And then you read another thing and it says, the cases are as bad as they were back in March. Yeah. So you just don't know. I'm completely confused as to what's actually going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird, but this is why I don't read the news. The general news, I stay away from it because everyone says something different. You don't really know what to believe. As long as you have an idea of what's going on and how I can see that things are still not great out there, I'm doing everything I can to protect myself and others.
Yeah. I tell you what, it'll be interesting to hear from our listeners abroad. It'd be interesting to hear what's going on in the areas. Like I know we've got some listeners over in the United States, for example, in Maryland. We can see that on a little map. So that's very interesting. That's very cool when we check the analytics, for example. But drop us a line on Facebook as facebook.com/CameraShake podcast, and just let us know what's going on in your area. That would be really interesting to see how that compares. Again, over here in the UK, officially things are opening up again, but then they're localized lockdowns. Yeah. So now instead of like shutting the whole country down, they're shutting down areas like parts of a town, for example, or it's not even whole towns. It's just like part of it.
I get the general principle behind it, but I'm not sure they're implementing it particularly well, because they're doing it for like a couple of weeks, and then it's like open again.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, it ges bad again.
It doesn't, and again, you've got all these conflicting messages that are coming out. Like, I noticed there's been some like localized lockdowns in Manchester, for example. and now they're opening up again. But then you have the Manchester mayor come out saying like, "Oh, but the case loads are rising in this area." And now so it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I don't know if anybody really knows what's happening.
No. I think it's, without getting too political, I think it's simply a fact of government they have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
I don't think they particularly care either.
Yeah.
They're just doing certain things to make it appear like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, as a result though, as a citizen, I'm confused.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm totally confused as to what it is that we're supposed to be doing. Because you get told you can do this, or you can do this thing now. You can, I don't know, go there and like have swimming lessons or whatever. And then on the other hand, like you get told, oh yeah, but cases are rising. So it's totally confusing.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to hear from listeners about what it's like in their area, whether you're in North America or in Spain or in, France or Germany or wherever you are. Just drop us a line, get in touch and let us know. That'd be cool.
Wicked.
So anyway, busy week.
Yeah, it has been. Yeah. Lots of editing underway from my perspective, audio and video.
Yeah.
We had our first kind of group sessions towards the end of last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where we got some video and audio work done, which was great. Really good fun. Some fantastic playing, all socially distanced, so that made it a challenge to film, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been better, but
needs
must, and it was a representation of what happened that day, and that's really what we're looking for. Spent some time editing that, a load of other video work that's been sort of pending over the last few weeks. Cleared some of that up as well, and almost at the end of that lot now. Before we go back to teaching.
Cool. Any interesting new acquisitions in terms of gear?
Not video and photography related, no.
Right.
But I have audio related.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Bought myself a new interface to sell another one that I've got at the same time, which simply is a Slate Digital interface, which is super linear, super clean, which enables you to be able to use their modeling microphones with their software as good as it can possibly be. And so that models old, vintage preamps and vintage mics and all of that. I won't go into detail about that on this, but I've been looking to get one of those for a while, and they did a really good deal on it. So I thought, I'll just have it. Cool. I sold the other one, selling a few other bits and pieces of audio gear as well to kind of pay for it.
Yeah. Are you good at like selling stuff off as you're
really bad at it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm terrible.
I think, but I might want it, but I'm making myself this time. What's the worst thing that could happen? I'd buy it again. Yeah,
true. I mean, I used to have this thing where, like, to date, I've only ever sold one guitar. Like, I have a fairly large collection of guitars, and people always say, like, how come you have like 30 guitars or something? It's not that I'm actively going out to buy guitars, but if you put it into perspective, I've been playing the guitar since I was 6, right? And I've only ever sold one guitar ever. So it's not really I've accumulated them over time. Over like nearly 40 years of playing, right? So it's like that works out at less than one guitar a year, so that's pretty good going. I think same with amps. And so I've always had a problem with selling gear off. It's like I always think like, oh, but I have so many memories and like there's a particular purpose for this, and
it depends on the gear. Doesn't it? It depends. If it means something to you, that's really hard to sell. If it's something that it does a particular job and it does it differently to something else that you have or may get in the future, then that's also very hard to sell. But I've got bits that I think that doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't do a particularly great job at what it's supposed to be doing, and I've got something else that I massively prefer. I'm going to get rid of it. So I've got a few bits that I'm going to do like that.
The only guitar I've ever sold, I was still at high school, I think. I sold it to this person in my year who I really didn't like, and
Was it that bad a guitar?
it was the worst guitar you could possibly
There we
imagine.
go.
So I kind of thought,
That makes sense.
that's mean.
That makes sense.
But yeah, other than that, it's very difficult for me to sell stuff off. It's just
You see, I've been playing bass now since I was 12, 13, 12, 13, something like that. I think I've only ever had 5 guitars, 5 basses.
I'm really I always think that's really cool when you talk to somebody who's like played the same guitar, like Brian May. Like built this guitar out of his fireplace or whatever with his dad. Played the same guitar ever since. That's remarkable.
Yeah.
And I can like there's some out of all of the guitars that I own, and a lot of them are, some of them are really nice, but some of them are terrible, right? But there's probably, I would say, 3 guitars, maybe 4, that I've actually played for a long, long time, and I still pick them up, and those are the ones that are coming out. Because they are just classics and they sound awesome. They've always been great and they feel great because I've been playing them for so long, and they have sort of a special meaning. Like two guitars were my dad's guitars, before he passed away. So that's, you have that kind of connection with those instruments.
Absolutely.
And they're my go-to guitars. So it's like I don't really necessarily fully understand why I end up buying new guitars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like because I don't really. I play them for a while, and then I can revert back to the ones that I'm really familiar with.
Totally. And
it's not too dissimilar with cameras, although my mind is changing when it comes to photographic gear. Yeah. With that, I'm much more in the mindset of, okay, this particular, I don't know, camera body or something has come to the end of its usefulness, and I'm now replacing it with something that allows me to, I don't know, fulfill my creative vision even better.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then I'm over that one. I'm over the old body, and I'm quite happy to let that go. So it's
DSLRs, right? It's different. It's different with something like that. They just get better. You're never going to go back to a 15-year-old DSLR and use that over something you got today. That's just never going to happen. What you might go back to is old film cameras.
Yeah, well, this is exactly right. And I had exactly that experience only a few days ago when. So my stepdaughter is starting her GCSE photography course, like this week. She's back at school, and she has an old, relatively old Nikon DSLR. Kind of one of the, I don't know. It's probably it's a D50, so it's pretty, I don't know, maybe 12 years old, maybe 10 years old, something like that. So quite, in DSLR terms, ancient. And also technologically quite rudimentary. Yeah. If you compare it to modern day mirrorless cameras or DSLRs, And I was trying it out the other day, and I looked at it and I'm thinking, man, there'd be no way I'll be getting back to that. The screen's tiny and the resolution is crap. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So it's almost unusable. The handling wasn't good. It's just, it just doesn't, the autofocus is super slow, man. You've got I think you've got 4 autofocus points in there. Oh, it's terrible. Oof. And of course that just made me think that back then, 10 years ago, that was an awesome camera. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, that was, where was that? But of course nowadays, you look at that and you go that's almost unusable, which of course is idiotic because... Well, it is.
It is. And this is, this is different to feeling you need to go buy new gear. It's a different thing. If you do get the new gear, you're not going to go back and use that older stuff. But if that's what you've got, you don't have to go buy new gear. Yeah. So there are two distinct sides to this. Yeah. But, film cameras you will go back to and use because that's what it is. Guitars, you're going to go back and use those older ones and whatnot. Just because it's newer does not mean it's better.
No, and that's absolutely true, because the guitars that I go back to are they are now nearly 40 years old. I have my dad's Fender Stratocaster is a 1984 model, I think. it's been in battle many times. I've probably played thousands of gigs actually on it.
Yeah.
You know, come to think of it. But, you know, it's got battle scars and things have been replaced on it, you know, and it, you know, everything's gone a bit yellow on it and it's, you know, it's got things missing and whatever, but it still sounds awesome and it still plays really well.
Yep.
And it's, you know, it's the kind of guitar that I go back to more than any other guitar that I've bought since.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's one of those classic instruments. You plug it in, live or in the studio, it just delivers. You know, it's the kind of, you know what kind of sound it's gonna be, and it just is. You know.
Yeah.
It's perfect. I've tried lots of like, you know, like newer Stratocasters or whatever, you know, since, and I've never really got anything that's quite as, you know, crunchy as that one. So it's one of these things. But I think, you know, with cameras, I'm very tempted to try out, you know, like the R5, for example. Very tempted. At the same time, I'm thinking
it might set your hair on fire.
It might. It might. Exactly.
Oh no, not anymore. No, not anymore.
But you know, it's just it's one of these things. Like I'm also scared that because I feel so comfortable with my current studio camera that I don't really want to upgrade at this point, and I feel like almost like I'm being lured into it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's kind of that's where I'm at. Although last week I upgraded my computer.
Finally.
Yes. It was time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Come on, what did you get?
Well, I went to I bought a brand new iMac.
Yeah.
So iMac 2020. The reason really being was that my MacBook Pro, my 2012 model MacBook Pro, had really served me very well. You know, it's 8 years old. It served me very well, in fact. It just, things have been going wrong with the screen recently, and really, that's too expensive to replace.
Yeah.
It really wasn't worth it. You know, obviously, I mean, over the past 8 years, I've been upgrading my MacBook, you know, from time to time. And it's much more powerful now than it was when I bought it. But it's really come to the end of its usefulness. I can't upgrade it anymore. Yeah. And now that things are going wrong with some of the hardware, it's like, well, okay, you know, we've come up with a different solution. And so I decided to not replace it with another laptop, but instead to go for an iMac. Just, you know, because I do find it straining looking at a smaller screen, and I kind of thought, you know, I need something that gives me more image space, as it were.
Yeah.
And I'm super impressed, man. That screen is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like
you can't go wrong with an iMac, and I don't, you know, I mean, the specs set for themselves, they are more powerful than any MacBook Pro. They just are.
The thing is so smooth and fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, it makes such a difference.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so used to waiting for things to open and, you know, and for things to happen. And it's not necessarily that, you know, I've been looking at the spinning wheel a lot on my MacBook, but it's just like, you know, you can tell in things like render times, for instance, you know, when you're doing video editing. Or even like things like import times in Lightroom. Import and export times in Lightroom. It's, you know, so much quicker. But I've also noticed that having kind of revisited some of my older photos, I can now see things in them that I really didn't see on the laptop screen. You know, like sensor spots, for example, right? Mm-hmm. I looked at an image the other day, and I'm like, well, it's clear as anything. There's a sensor spot there that I obviously didn't take out in editing, but it was so glaringly obvious. I'd never seen that before.
I see that on, you know, and it does make a difference the screen that you're using. If you know, just give an example. Some of the footage that I took at the end of last week. If you look at it, I've got a brand new MacBook Pro, the top spec one that they did in late 2019, right? Screen's great on it. If I look at one camera's footage on that, looks all right, looks fine. go and put it on my, because I've got an LG 27-inch screen that I attach, I dock it to, and look at it on that, full of noise. Can't see it on the MacBook Pro screen.
Yeah.
You can see it, but not particularly, it looks like, oh, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Get it on that screen. All of a sudden, I can't stand looking at it. I need to deal with it. Now I'm going to have to spend hours throwing it for a neat video to get rid of it. So screen size does make a difference. And that's a 4K screen, whereas a MacBook Pro screen is not, I don't believe.
Yeah.
It's like a step down from that, whatever that would be.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I've been also watching a few movies on it. Obviously, as you do. Yeah. Just to kind of test it out, clearly. But yeah, I mean, the 5K screen really comes into it. I mean, the sound is pretty good. They've improved the speakers in it.
The iMac speakers have always been quite good. Yeah. Even my old 2012 iMac, which is sitting over there at the moment, even speakers and that were for computer speakers were good. I wouldn't do any mixing on them, of course not. But
no,
I mean, hear what's going on.
I'm really I'm impressed with the speakers. I'm also impressed with the microphone quality. So obviously, still we're all on Zoom calls still. And I did a bit of a comparison between this Rode NT1 mic yesterday and the built-in mic in the iMac, and the built-in mic in my Sennheiser Bluetooth headphones.
Oh yeah.
And on Zoom how you can test your mic and it records a little bit and you can listen back to it. So I did it with all three mics, and it's really interesting to hear the difference.
Yeah,
it's really interesting to hear the difference.
I bet they're all drastically different as well.
Well, so the Sennheiser built-in thing was terrible. Like off the bat, that was really terrible. It sounded like a phone call. I mean, really, maybe a tad better than a phone call. The built-in iMac mic and the Rode NT were not too dissimilar.
That's good.
The only difference I found was that with the NT1, like with an external mic, you have that proximity effect.
Yeah. Because
you're closer to the mic, especially when you have the mic really close to you, it gives it some additional warmth.
Yeah.
Adds some warmth to the voice, and also it seems to blank out a lot of the background noise. So if you imagine if you're talking to the iMac microphone, you're still relatively far away from the mic.
Yeah.
So there's still I don't know, I would say good a
couple of foot, right?
Yeah, 20 inches maybe, something like that. But when you're in the mic. And so it takes in more of the environmental sound. So if you get kids in the background or TV sound, whatever, you can hear it more. It's more prominent.
Yeah.
But if you get an external mic and you're talking straight into it, your voice sounds a little bit warmer, and it seems to just cancel out everything or a lot more of what's happening around you.
It rejects sound outside of certain areas. Yeah. It's cardioid pattern.
Yeah,
whereas the mic on the iMac, I have no idea. It'll be Omni.
Apparently, they call it the new studio mic, you see.
Do they now?
Yeah, that's what they call it.
Okay.
The studio
Let's
mic.
go with that. All right. Thank you, Apple.
Yeah, exactly. Really. But
well known for your mic manufacturing.
Well, exactly. Yeah. But I have to give it to them, for all intents and purposes, it's a million times better than my MacBook Pro was originally. So if you are talking over FaceTime, just generally, or if you're making Zoom calls, generally speaking, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's great. It sounds great. Much improved. I've also noticed that on my Zoom calls with the new HD FaceTime camera that's built in, because they've now finally brought it up to 1080p rather than it was 720 before. It's like, what year is it?
Yeah, quite.
But it makes such a difference.
It does,
because I look sharp rather than fuzzy, which makes me a lot more self-conscious.
Yeah, I don't like it.
It's
Can you go back to 720, please?
Well, I don't know if you can change it. Probably not. But it's weird. Do you know what I mean? So, but from what I'm hearing from the people that I'm talking to, it has made a massive improvement in the way that the image looks and stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, not only in terms of like photo editing and video editing and whatever, performance-wise, but also just general kind of use of it. It's actually it's made an improvement. One of the most important things for me is actually it's really improved my posture. So one of the things that I've really noticed over the last however long we've been in lockdown, like the last 4-5 months or something, is that because I've spent a lot of time talking on Zoom, I've been sitting looking down at the laptop, and I sort of started experiencing, pains in the back of my neck and your shoulders and whatever. And now with the iMac, I'm sitting straight and I'm looking straight at the screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really made a big difference in terms of posture. So that was one of the main considerations that I had when I tried to decide whether I'm going to go for a straight MacBook replacement or whether I'm going to go for the iMac. So that's a big thing. Clearly, it's not as portable, so that's a drawback. But I still have my old MacBook, and if I do go on location and I need to tether the camera to a laptop, it's perfectly fine for that. No big deal. So the screen is not broken. It'll work for tethering, no problem. It's just that there's lines going through now, so it's really not for editing. It's not.
It's a bit of a pain.
It's a bit of a pain. Yeah. So but yeah, for like tethering or something, it'd be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah. But the posture is a big deal. That's why I almost never work on my MacBook just at a desk. Very rarely. If I'm ever using that just on its own, if I'm out and about, that's one thing, right? But if I'm at home and I'm only using that, I'm generally using it on the sofa.
Yeah.
And I'm sat back properly, and I've got it on the side, and I'm just doing bits and pieces. If I'm not working on that, I'm working on the attached to a screen. Sat at a desk properly, looking up, eye level, 3/4 of the way up the screen, all of that.
Well, see, this is actually another one of those positive aspects that came out of lockdown for me, is that I had a closer look at my working area at home, because now we were forced to work from home, and so I had a really close look at the area that I'm working in. I bought a new desk and put shelves up, and I designed it so that it would be comfortable and comfortable and just convenient for me to work at. Because I think when you're doing creative things, at least for me, I need to be in a creative environment. I need to like the environment that I'm in. So the standard kind of cubicle thing isn't really going to do it for me. I feel like I can't really be creative if I'm in an environment that's not particularly creative, or that I'm not comfortable in. So I decided to change that work area, and I had like I like wood. So we've talked about this many times on this podcast, but that's the kind of look that I like, and so I kind of use these. What do you call them? Refurbished. What's it called? Reclaimed. Yeah, reclaimed scaffolding boards and stuff, and built like shelving out of it and all that kind of stuff. So, and it's just now an environment. And I've lit it, with LED lights and blah blah. So it's now an environment that I'm really happy to sit for hours and work at. Whilst previously I was literally just staring at a white wall, and so it kind of just helps me to be like to just feel happy in the working environment.
That's good, man.
So
important.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. So anyway, so that was new gear acquisition of the week.
Indeed. So we mentioned the R5 there as well. Let's talk about it.
So the saga continues. I mean, I don't know how many weeks we've been talking about this.
I don't know. I'm bored of hearing about it, but it's an important update.
Yeah. So, in a nutshell, I don't know who doesn't know, but basically what happened was Canon brought out the R5. I'll just give you a very quick look back at this. So Canon brought out the R5. It's awesome. It's got some incredible video specs, but turns out it overheats really quickly, which basically means that the time that you can record is not great, and it takes quite a long time for it to cool down again before it allows you to carry on recording. That's a pain in the neck potentially, but they've just brought out a firmware update. So after everybody was hailing the R5 originally, then when it turns out that it overheats, everybody was like, slating it on YouTube and wherever. And now Canon's brought up this firmware update, which basically addresses a number of things. So there's a whole range of different kind of things that are updated in the camera, But it also mentions, pretty much at the end of the whole list of updates, it mentions the fact that they've increased the recording times for some of those recording modes that originally led to overheating. So it's not that the camera doesn't magically overheat anymore, right? It's not that. It basically just means that you now, instead of being able to record for 19 minutes, you can now record for like 24 minutes or something like that, right, in whatever 8K yada yada mode. So it's a step in the right direction, I guess. There was one little test that I heard about. It was this guy who did who basically wanted to see how many 30-second clips you can record in a row before it basically tells you that it's overheating and it'll shut down. And originally, before the firmware update, it was something like 22 30-second clips, right? And so that could be important. And I was listening to another podcast actually where they were talking about this, and that resonated with me because it's actually a very typical application for a lot of the stuff that we do in video. Much like a wedding videographer, you record a 30-second clip, then you stop, then you record another 30-second clip or something. So it's rather than what we're doing in here, where we've got cameras on for 20 minutes at a time, the real world use of those cameras is for the most part quite different. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So anyway, before the firmware update, it was 22 30-second clips. Before the thing indicated it was overheating. And after the firmware update, it was something like over 90.
Huh.
So that's a decent improvement.
So that's gone from a total of 11 minutes to 45.
Yeah. If you record, apparently. So if you record and then for 30 seconds, then stop, then record again, and so on. So that's apparently what happens.
Okay.
So that seems useful.
Far more reasonable.
When I haven't seen the actual test, like I said, I'm really just regurgitating something that I've heard on another podcast, but I thought it was an interesting thing, interesting little fact. So if any fact checkers amongst you out there, if you want to double check that, then please do. And if that's incorrect, then get back to us. But as far as I know at this point, that's what's happening. So
it's still, the whole cut-off time still baffles me as to how that's ever going to be useful for anybody, because you're going to do 45 minutes of shooting at a time on let's just take the wedding as an example. You're going to be shooting constantly, with a break here and there.
You need two bodies. Once one overheats, you pull the other one up. Yeah, it makes no sense.
Don't get me wrong, you should always shoot with two bodies, but
it's just I'm wondering whether. I don't know. I'm wondering whether we're going to be getting new firmware updates, every month or so, because it's only been a month since that camera's come out.
This is true as well. This is true. But this whole saga has put me off. Because when it first came out, I considered, maybe this is something I want to seriously take a look at and potentially switch to Canon. This whole saga has just put me off entirely, and I still can't see how it would be useful in any way for me. I'm steering clear of 8K for a very long time yet. I think I don't see any benefit right now. I want to be able to shoot exactly like I can with my GH5S as long as I want in 4K until the memory card's full, or the batteries die.
It's one of these things you really only realize that in very specific circumstances, when you really reach the limitation of the camera body that you're using. Right. So a good example is actually what we're doing right now. So for those of you who are listening to the audio version of this, we simultaneously video the whole thing, so it's available on YouTube as a video podcast essentially. So you could not only listen to our radio friendly voices,
buttery smooth, that's
it. But you could also watch us in full Technicolor on YouTube if you were so inclined. Just simply search for Camera Shake Podcast, 3 words, Camera Shake Podcast, you'll find us. Having said that, by the way, so we need to get some more subscribers so that we can actually rename our YouTube channel.
Yeah, that would be nice.
So YouTube requires us to have 100 subscribers.
Yep.
we're some way away from that, which it sounds very sad, but it's it's a hardcore business, man. I mean, it's hard. Anyway, so if you're listening to the audio version, you would do us a favor, and if you would just hop over to YouTube and just subscribe to the Camera Shake podcast on there.
Very much appreciated.
That'd be super sweet. Anyway, coming back to the camera thing. So what we're doing is, since we're recording this on 3 cameras. So we've got a GH5 and then 2 Nikons.
Mm-hmm. And
the GH5 can record infinitely, I guess.
Yep.
4K. You just turn it on, it records the whole shebang, and cool. The Nikons have a 20-minute recording limit, which, believe it or not, is actually quite annoying, because we have to set a timer on a phone that lets us know when like 19 minutes is up or whatever, and then we've got to stop the Nikons, turn them back on, and then afterwards we have to go in and edit these bits out and whatever. So it just seems, in 2020, this seems like a pretty antiquated way of working.
It really does.
But then, hey, 20 years ago, being able to record the high quality video, like 1080, even 1080 HD video with your camera, that would have been pretty amazing anyway.
Yeah,
so,
would have. Yeah,
it's all like the perspective matters. I think.
I like the fact that my Nikon has 720p options on there.
Oh yeah,
Panasonic doesn't.
Yeah, right.
Because they know why. Why would you? Why would you ever want to?
I don't even remember. Oh no, I do remember. Yeah, so years ago, this goes back maybe about 8 years, something like that. I bought a camcorder, like an HDD camcorder. Like it was a Sony actually. Or was it Canon? I think it was a Sony. But it was like built as like an HD camcorder, like high definition, 720.
Yeah. Well, I fell into that trap when I first bought a quote unquote HD TV.
Oh, right.
Like 18 years ago, whenever it was. HD Ready is what they called it back then.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
And it did 1080i.
Right.
Or 720p.
Yeah.
And I, being standing for interlaced and P standing for progressive. And without getting into any of the technicalities behind it, they do look a bit different. And I does not look good in comparison to P. And fell into that. And it didn't even have an HDMI input. It just had, what did it have? It wasn't VGA. It was something different that monitors have. I forget what it's called now. It's not a display port like Mac have.
Yeah.
It wasn't VGA. There's something in between there.
It was like a SCART, was it?
No, not SCART. I forget, but it's something in between, but it doesn't carry sound. So
right.
You have to plug in the sound separately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my TV, it has a bug in it.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Right in the center.
Yeah.
Some bug crawled into that TV literally years ago. Probably about 4 years ago, something like that. It crawled in there and it died right in the center of the screen. It's about half an inch long and black. And that's where it is. And we can't get it out.
Please buy a new telly.
And it has been there ever since. And it's, we call it Bugsy Malone.
Get a new TV.
It's been good. It's been good watching stuff on the iMac screen without having a bug in the middle of it. So
don't spend 300 quid on a new telly.
Maybe one day.
Just do it.
I spend too much money on an iMac.
Well, yeah, true. Yeah, very true.
Yeah, it's interesting experience.
So the R5 then, it's going to be interesting to see how people view the, I guess, firmware 1.1 or 1.01 or whatever they've called it, and see if it actually helps and is doing the trick, or whether it's just a little smoothing over until they actually fix it.
Yeah, and see, I just wonder, another thought that I picked up somewhere else, but I'm just thinking, I wonder whether the same people that complained about the overheating bit are now going to be the people who are going to be complaining about the fact that Canon had to bring out a firmware update only 1 month after they've released the model. Do you see what I mean?
See, that doesn't bother me.
Right.
If they didn't get something quite right and they bring out a firmware update immediately to correct that, great. All right, a lot of this should have been caught, but they didn't, but they're correcting it straight away.
Well,
that's cool. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no, me too.
I'm okay with that.
At least it shows that they're listening.
Yeah.
It was just interesting that when I saw the list of updates, basically, it was literally one of the last items on the list when it's been such a big deal that I would have almost like expected to be at the top,
Yeah.
you know?
See, that then suggests to me that your conspiracy theory about it all, that they did it deliberately just to get them talking about it, I think that throws that one out.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I think they would have made a song and dance about it.
Well, or if they release a new firmware update every month or something, you know, where they improve the recording length, you know, incrementally every time, then they just keep the conversation going. So this might be a clever ploy, you see? It might be clever.
Canon, don't do that, please.
Yeah, it's, you know what's interesting also about this is that we've been talking a lot about Canon. Neither of us shoot Canon, by the way.
That's
right? And we haven't really talked a lot about Nikon, and both of us shoot Nikon.
Yeah.
So it's like,
that's funny.
and it kind of makes me almost like, it makes me sad in a way, because I really haven't seen very many, you know, groundbreaking developments.
No, not for a while.
Not for a
Other
while.
than obviously the Z series.
Yeah, the Z5 that came out a little while ago. But, you know, yeah. So I will do a little bit of research and just find out if there's anything in the pipeline.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. Even Panasonic have got a new full frame camera coming out, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah. It's the S5. S5. They're pegging it as an entry level full frame, kind of, or just above entry level kind of full frame camera, which the body's going to be in the region of the same price as the GH5S was when it first came out, about £1,500, £1,600, $2,000, I think is what it's going out as. And it's got some decent specs by the looks of it. It's small. The body's very small. The body looks identical to the GH5S.
Okay.
Or very similar, I should say. So it is a Lumix series. So you'd expect it to look similar, but it's a small body. It's a compact kind of body.
But I'm guessing because it's full frame, it'll have a different mount. And so therefore,
I believe so.
Yeah, it'll be a whole different series of lenses.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, I mean, Panasonic did also come out with recently, they got asked the question whether, doing these full frames, does that mean the end of Micro Four Thirds for them? And they categorically said, absolutely not. They're sticking with Micro Four Thirds because they love it, they believe in it, and they think it's great.
But what was their actual reaning for it? That's the thing.
They didn't really say anything. They're just sticking with it. So it's a bit like Olympus sticking with their guns, and they're gonna, they're not going mirrorless, right? I think there's probably a little bit of that going on.
Right.
Because they are the main Micro Four Thirds at the moment.
Yeah,
they're definitely the market leader.
I think they should all go medium format. Personally.
Yeah.
The bigger the better, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the S5 sounds interesting. I was actually... See, I don't really know that much about Panasonic. Other than the GH5 that we use a lot. But I sort of generally... Yeah, I'm generally surprised that they're releasing full frame cameras, and yet they have this sort of this strong connection with Micro Four Thirds. And the Micro Four Thirds are not aimed at the kind of beginner entry level market.
No,
you find it a lot with other brands where they have like a full frame range of cameras, and then like a crop sensor type of like Nikon has the DX cameras and so on, and they tend to be the crop sensor cameras tend to be aimed at this entry level kind of market. Yeah, and I think although of course with Nikon like the D500 is a pretty damn decent camera, no doubt. That's definitely not a beginner's camera, but it always feels like, and you read this a lot when you read forums or whatever, when people go like, oh, I'm thinking of moving from crop sensor to full frame to the professional cameras sort of thing. So there's definitely that kind of division, I think, between crop sensors being more for the kind of beginners, intermediates, and then when you get really good, you move on to full frame. And so, as far as I know, Panasonic don't do any crop sensor
No, I don't think so.
type of
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got their whole range of actual compact cameras that they've done for years. The Lumix range, in fact, is where it all started, was with the small compact, which are surprisingly good.
Yeah.
They even shoot in RAW, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of cameras in that range. Obviously, everything moves on, everything gets better. Yeah. It's a bit like smartphone cameras, like just get better over time. When even if you take something like the Fuji X100 series, like whether it's, I still have an X100F, but that's the new model, the follow-up model, the X100V is out. If you look at these cameras, I mean, they're compact cameras. They don't even have interchangeable lenses. In many ways, they're very rudimentary. Practically no zoom, no optical zoom anyway. No interchangeable lenses. But they're killer cameras. I mean, they have, they're packed with features. They create amazing imagery. And for all intents and purposes, they produce professional grade type of images. They're just in this tiny little unassuming body. And of course, they've got this retro look, and it's really part of the appeal. This that typical kind of street photo vibe. And it's fun. They're fun to use. We've talked about this like many times on this podcast, but I really enjoy using that in a completely different way that I'd use any Nikon or anything like that. So this definitely there's a definitive purpose for that. It gives you a certain satisfaction in certain circumstances, and it makes photography fun, and it presents its own challenges at the same time. So So Microsoft have come out with the new AI Authenticator.
Oh yes,
right.
Yes, I have. I saw that
for photos and video. And so the point is that it's an automated way that you can work out whether an image or video has been tampered with. Like, for instance, whether an image has been modified in any way, or whether a video has been deep faked. So deep fake video is this thing where people, deep fakers, literally transplant some actor's face onto another human, and they get them to say things that they would have never actually said, and there's been a lot of controversy around that. But it looks so realistic that it's extremely difficult to tell whether it's real or not. And I've seen some deep fakes, and they're really incredible. I mean, sometimes they're just simply taken scenes from movies like Back to the Future or something, and just put other actors faces on the original actors, and then you watch it back and you go, wow, what is this like? It's incredible. It looks like the real deal. It's really amazing, the AI that's and these that's like deep, what is it called, deep learning, deep machine learning kind of stuff that's happening there. It's very, very, very clever and very advanced. And so in order to protect from that, Microsoft has brought out this AI Authenticator type of software, which basically flags up when it thinks that something's untoward going on.
Giving it a confidence rating, if I remember.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, it gives it a confidence rating, right. So unfortunately with photos, I feel like it's very rudimentary in the way it works, because basically what happens is, as a creator of a photograph, you have the opportunity to meta tag or attach tags to this particular photo, so you can give it some additional information that gets kind of baked into the file. And then the authenticator will just simply check whether all of these tags are still in existence or not. Right. So if they're missing, then it probably means that photo has been copied and saved again, and then there's a high chance that it could have been tampered with and whatever. Right. So it's pretty rudimentary when it comes to photos. But what I've seen from the video version, that could be quite interesting. Yeah. But it's a confidence rating, so it's not It doesn't necessarily tell you 100%, this has been tampered with or not.
Yeah.
It just kind of tells you what the chances are.
So what I did read on that was that they can detect the kind of grayscale smoothing that happens between let's say the person's face that they're putting on the body, between them, and which is very clever to be able to do that. Things that the human eye aren't capable of seeing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But then what they also said is this is not going to be released to the public in any way.
Correct.
Smart move. If it was, those who do the deepfakes will easily get hold of it and have their software learn how it works, and within to bet days, it would cease to be useful.
So do you have to sign up to it?
I don't know. It's going to be. I don't know. I saw that it's going to be released to a group of, a body of some description that will have it, and what they're going to be able to, what they'll do with it, and where it's going to be implemented. I really don't know at this stage.
This is interesting because that kind of leads to another story. Google Images have just released a licensable badge type of thing, and this takes us back to an earlier episode a few weeks ago where we talked about the fact that one of my photos had been stolen.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, that's really something, that happens all the time to photographers online, where people just kind of, do a Google image search or something, find an image, and then nick that image for some other use, right? And of course, it's so easy to do, which is why that's such a common thing, right? You could, of course, go to a stock photo website and pay, for a license in order to use a particular photo. But of course, that involves money. So Google have released this licensable thing, which was, I think they beta tested that a little while ago, but it's now going live. Which will, if you do an image search, it will basically come up with a little badge that says this particular photo can be licensed. It's licensable. And if you click on that, you get some background information on who the creator is, for example.
Okay.
And there'd be a link to a website, for instance, that would allow you to buy the photo from there. So it could be, it could take you to a stock photo site where that photo is on sale, for example. Or I'm guessing you might be able to get somebody to come back to your website if you're selling photos on your own website or something, whatever. So, but it basically gives those who are legitimately looking to purchase photography for a particular purpose, like whether it's advertising or whatever it is, or use inclusion on a website or something, it will give people an easy way to find out who the creator is and to get a link to wherever that photo can be purchased. So the hope is that would basically motivate more people to do the right thing, right? And I think that's a pretty good thing. I mean, that's it's definitely a step in the right direction. Whether that's going to lead to a lot more people paying for photography, I don't know.
Well, probably not. Not for the foreseeable anyway. But what it will do is it starts to... I liken this to a little bit like pirated software, right? That it's readily available. Pretty much with one quick search, you can find whatever software you want. But as that has got worse over the years, actual software companies have made it easier and cheaper to get their software, right? Now let's not get into it, but they do monthly subscriptions instead, all that kind of stuff as well, to make it more affordable for people to actually get it. That makes people want to get the legitimate version over time. Yeah, they reset their mindset about getting it, and the same thing needs to happen with always happening with movies, because people think, oh, Netflix is cheap enough every month, for example. I'd rather just get that rather than downloading a pirated version of it. This is probably what will happen eventually with photos and things like that. I don't know why it hasn't already. But the more you see that they're available to be purchased, rather than you can just take, half the people don't even know these are other people's photos to a certain extent. People don't even realise. But the more you see it, and if they're more readily available, they may be licensed for cheaper. as well. And if you see something that was originally licensed for, just for argument's sake, 50 quid, and now it's available for a tenner, you're more likely to go ahead and go, you know what, I'd rather do the right thing and just pay a tenner.
Well, I mean,
and it's easier for me to go get it.
Yeah, well. I mean, I think the subscription model thing, it's where you get a lot of people to sign up and pay you a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Rather than only being able to charge a select few and charge them a lot of money. I think the idea is that if you charge a lot of people a little bit of money, in the end, you actually come up with, with more revenue than otherwise. So, and the same thing is happening in royalty-free music, for example.
Yeah.
So for those of you who upload videos to YouTube, you'll know that if you put just about any music track under your video, you'll very quickly get picked up by YouTube's algorithm and you'll get a copyright strike.
Yeah.
And the way that works is really interesting because literally within seconds,
while it's being uploaded,
yeah, exactly. Whilst you're uploading the video, YouTube's algorithm scans your video and then basically compares that to its, I guess, database or whatever, and then figures out whether you have the right to use this song or not.
Yeah.
But not only that, it also gives you a visual representation as to where exactly in the video that piece of music occurs.
And it doesn't even need to be the original bit of music.
Yes.
It could be a cover of someone who's playing it in just take a band's piece, song, and a band covers it and puts it up in that. That picks that up. If you've got an orchestra or a quintet or whatever it might be playing that song with no lyrics, nothing, it picks that up as well.
Yeah, it's
very good.
It's really interesting. I mean, it's we've come across that a number of times. Also, sometimes it misidentifies the tune. Yeah. So we've had that in the past where it identifies something as like some Japanese folk tune from 1674 or something. You go, what? No way. But anyway, so it's and
it should be said that there are levels of copyright claim, and actually the majority that come up doesn't mean that your video can't go up with that song on. It just means that you won't be able to monetize that video, right?
Yeah. So the difference there is a full-on copyright strike is essentially where it's almost like a takedown notice.
Yeah.
You cannot release that video. You cannot make it public.
Yeah. Thank you, Eagles. Thank you, AC/DC.
Exactly. But then there's sort of different levels of that. So, for instance, one type of notice basically just says you can't. This video won't be visible in certain territories. So it may be visible in Europe and not in North America, or not in Asia, or whatever. And then another type of notice simply means you can monetize it. So you can put adverts on it. Or if you monetize it, the proceeds go to the copyright holder, or something like that. So basically you can't enrich yourself on the works of others. It's, which is fair enough.
Which I'd rather it be the way they're doing it now than how it did used to be, or I believe it used to be anyway, where your video just couldn't go up at all for almost any song that was on there. For sure.
Yeah, because for a lot of acts, it's all about exposure, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, it's one of these things. Anyway, so Google Images, coming back to the licensable thing. Now, essentially, you can, if you were so inclined, you could now license an image. And I think it's a good thing because it brings the conversation up about copyright and who's the owner of work and whether that's cool to, it's a bit like, whether it's cool to smoke in cars, you have to have a conversation about that because not necessarily everybody might agree. You know what I mean? I mean, it's one of these things.
Yeah.
Although smoking cars is not very good for you. Just saying that.
But it looks cool.
Well, but it's probably not so cool if you have children in the back of the car and all that. But so I found that an interesting development. The other thing that's really cool about this is that you'd be able to search for licensable images. So it'll be baked into the search functions. You can basically
that's there already.
Is it?
There are some bits for that, but I'm guessing now those tagged as licensable will be far wider reaching.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, basically, and And it could very well lead to people maybe doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I guess, and maybe they might realize that. Just like it's not cool to copy somebody else's creation in terms of music or whatever, or movies or whatever. It's it's also not really that cool to copy and use other people's photographic work. So
absolutely,
and it's one of these things that's generally when we've had conversations about photo licensing with people in general, and also very often when I have that conversation with clients, they're really not aware that even exists. So. It's
if this gets the conversation moving and throws out there some education to people, then that's how it starts, right? That's how it starts to get better.
Yeah. So if you're interested in learning more about how licensing works, go back and watch the Stolen Photos episode on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to.
We need to start remembering the episode numbers for some of these.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know, it was like episode 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
It'll be in the title.
It is.
Anyway. Cool. What else? Oh, this is my final, actually, no, my second to last contribution for today.
Go.
So Uber have had a problem with people not wearing masks in the back of their cars, right? And that's, of course, not cool for the drivers because it puts the drivers at risk. So drivers were able to basically strike certain passengers. So they're basically literally tag them and basically say this, this particular passenger has been naughty and hasn't been wearing a mask. And what happens is, if that happens to you as a passenger, right, then the next time you order an Uber, you will now have to take a selfie of yourself with a mask on and send that to Uber so that gets verified, and then you're allowed to get on the ride.
Wow.
Right? So that's the latest from Uber.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Of course, I don't know what will keep people off like taking a selfie of themselves, with a mask on and take the mask off afterwards.
I assume it should be banned then if they attempt to get in again without one on.
I guess that's probably what might happen, but it's still, interesting that nowadays we have to.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how seriously Uber drivers do take it. I've seen drivers which are clearly Uber drivers, I see them pick people up and whatnot. Yeah. People are getting in without masks on and they don't do anything with it.
Yeah, probably. But at least it gives them some level of protection, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, they should be. But
generally,
the drivers are generally wearing them. But
it's one of these things. I spoke to a friend of mine in the United States the other day, actually in Florida, and he was telling me that generally the uptake on like people wearing masks in like supermarkets, for instance, is very high there. And I kind of thought, it's getting like that here. I think I see by far more people wearing masks when they're out shopping than not. So it's definitely, I think, over the last 6 weeks or something, that's definitely improved a lot.
Actually, I don't recall last time I went into Sainsbury's and someone wasn't wearing one, I have to say.
Usually employees.
I've yet to see an employee wear one.
I've seen some. I mean, some go all out with the face shields and whatnot. But a lot of employees.
Funny, isn't it?
Still wearing them. Yeah.
Don't really get it. Oh, well.
I don't know. I mean, if you could wear a mask for like 8 hours a day or something, that can be tough. I've got one of these. I've got a bunch of these R95 masks. And I have to say, like, if I wear that for longer than 10 minutes, I do feel like I'm going to pass out.
Yeah.
It really is. I find it very hard to breathe in those. Not so much, with the normal, whatever you call them,
like surgical style.
Yeah.
Ones.
Yeah. So they're better, but the other ones, like, yeah. Ooh, we should talk about our competition winner.
Oh yes, we really should.
Yes. So, we can announce the competition winner of our last photo competition. It was landscapes, and we had a lot of entries.
Really did.
Yeah, a lot of entries again, which was awesome.
Some amazing entries too.
Yeah, and it's very hard to make a decision.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it took a while, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But we have come to a decision. And the winner of last month's photo competition is no other than, drumroll, Mr. Stephen Davis. There you go. Cool. Stephen, well done. Awesome. That image is phenomenal. Loved it. It's an image of the South Stack Lighthouse in North Wales. And it's beautiful.
Stunning image.
beautiful, really cool, interesting foreground. The lighthouse, the sea, the horizon, the sky, beautiful. Lighting, that's great. It's one of these landscape images I always I wish I could take. I'm not much of a landscape photographer, as I'll happily admit. And I was meant to practice my landscape photography in Canada this summer, but of course that didn't happen. Whinge. But yeah, so Stephen, that was wicked. Hopefully we will be able to speak to Stephen himself.
Yep.
Next week or maybe the week after, but we'll sort it out. That'd be very interesting to talk about how he made that photo.
Absolutely. It's a very well balanced photo, isn't it? Very, very well balanced. I can't wait to talk to him about it.
Yeah. So if you're watching the video version of this, you will see it right here.
Yeah.
So there you go. If you're listening to the audio version, you're gonna have to go to YouTube and subscribe. Well, you don't have to subscribe, but it would be nice if you did. So just to plug that one more time. It really, it makes a big difference if you like and subscribe, and even if you're listening to the audio version of this on Apple Podcasts, do us a favor and just give us a star rating. That'd be awesome. Or even leave a review. We're so brand new. We haven't had any reviews on Apple Podcasts. It'd be phenomenal. I can't even talk. Phenomenal. I was going to say fantastic or phenomenal, one of the two. But it'd be awesome to see a review there. It really makes a lot of difference to the discoverability of
it does
of a podcast like ours. We're a small podcast. But which is why it's even more amazing when you look at the analytics map and you see somebody listening to the podcast in in Canada or in Portugal or in Australia or it's great. It's really good fun to look at the map, and it doesn't really tell you exactly where somebody is, but it gives you the general area.
It does.
So it'll be Los Angeles or Maryland. We've seen a few downloads there. So if you're the person listening to this podcast in Maryland, I think it's North Virginia or maybe something like that. But that'd be fantastic. Again, get in touch with us. You can either email us on camerashakepodcast@gmail.com or just hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/camerashakepodcast. Shouldn't come as a surprise. You can hit us up there. But it'd be super great to hear from y'all. That is pretty much it, except haven't had dog reference yet.
Honestly thought we were going to go an entire episode.
Really? It's impossible.
Okay.
I tell you what, this dog, right? Man, he's in this teething phase. He's actually lost a couple of teeth now, so he's he's 16 weeks old now. But he keeps biting everything with his sharp little razor sharp little puppy teeth, and he's bitten my thumb so many times. I think I've got nerve damage. I kid you not. It's he's crazy. But I came across this photographer called Danielle Spires, and she's been doing pet and owner portraits, right? It's pets and their humans sort of thing. But she's done it in this. She's doing these portraits in this really naff 1980s style. It's I think it's generally known as an Olan Mills style or something like that. Which is basically where you have. Do you remember those family portraits from the 80s? You have basically the owner of the pet with the pet, and then you have, it's usually on a black background, and then you've got a close up of the pet in the background.
Yeah.
Super naff,
but
super funny at the same time, right? And she's doing it in a sort of humorous way,
sure.
And it's it's like when you Google, the 10 worst family portraits or something like that.
They're all in there.
Yeah, they're all in there. But it's a really fun way to take portraits of your pet. I think it's really funny. The owners that she's photographing are all dressed up as if they're pretty much straight out of the 80s in some weird way. So it's it's cool. But that made me chuckle.
Oh, that's funny. I'll look those up. Look at some of them.
Yeah. We'll put a link on Facebook for that. But yeah, so that's really the only really super fun photography story that I came across this week.
Yeah.
I think everybody's busy trying to get their kids back to
school. I think so. It does seem that way.
Yeah.
Well, never mind.
No. Cool. Well, I think that's pretty much all we've got for this week.
It is.
Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed it. Again, please leave a little review and star rating if you're listening to the audio version, because that would be very much appreciated, and it really makes a massive difference to us. If you are watching on YouTube, please click subscribe. We want to add a few more subscribers to our channel. That'd be awesome. Our goal is to hit the magical 100.
Yep.
So that we can rename our channel and actually call it Camera Shake Podcast. That'd be awesome. If you know anybody else who might enjoy listening to us, then let them know. Spread the word.
Indeed.
Like a virus. Let's make it a pandemic, man. Come on. Anyway, yeah, man, that's pretty much all I've got.
Cool. Let's do it.
Cool. All right, then. Right, that's all from us this week. That was episode 19 of the Camera Shake Podcast.
Well remembered.
Yeah, so get confused. So next week is going to be our 20th anniversary, our 20th episode.
Yeah.
So bearing in mind that we only started this at the beginning of lockdown because it just gave us something to do effectively. To find that we're now on episode 20 almost is, I thought it was mind-boggling when we hit episode 10, to be honest.
Yeah. Wait till it hits episode 52 and we've been doing it for a year.
I know. Mm-hmm. I know. Cool. We're episode 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 10 years from now.
Love it.
You'll still be listening to this. Anyway, take it easy, and hopefully we'll see you again next week.
See you later.